Into this, internet service providers have 3 months to comply with amendments to the Film and Publications Act. They must provide reports on all steps taken to prevent the hosting and distributing prohibited material. Now, these include child pornography, war propaganda and incitement of violence. But for more on this, we're now joined by Deputy Communications Minister, that's Mapulane. Deputy Minister, thank you for your time. Good morning to you and happy Monday. Let's just start with the timelines. I mean, of the 90 days. Is the 3 months still ongoing, or has the 90 days already lapsed? Just give us some clarity, please, in terms of timelines.
Good morning. Good morning to Melo, and good morning to your viewers. There was a notice that was issued by the Films and Publication Board in terms of, I think it's Section 23 and Section 27F of the Films and Publications Amendment Act of 2019, which requires the online service providers to submit, to register with the FPB as required by the new Amendment Act. So that notice was issued around the 28th of October, so the 90 days is calculated from there.
And so far, have you been receiving those reports that you have requested from the internet service providers?
Well, they have got 90 days to submit the reports to the FPB. So after 90 days, it's only when we can be able to determine whether they've all submitted.
Let's talk about the importance of this request. I mean, you are demanding that internet service providers actually comply with amendments to the Film and Publications Act. This, of course, prohibiting, providing various reports about prohibited material on their networks. How important is this for you as a department to emphasize?
Dumelo, maybe just a little bit of a context and background. In 2019, a new law was enacted by Parliament, which is called the Films and Publications Amendment Act. And so the law was not operationalized because the body that is responsible for implementing that act, which is the Films and Publication Board, had to put out certain systems in place and develop capacity for it to be able to enforce the new act. So that act was operationalized by the president with effect from the 1st of March this year. So what the law does, this is an amendment act which provides expansive powers to the Films and Publications Board and transform it from just being a body that is responsible for classification of materials and content to being a real regulator of online content. So as a result of this new amendment and expansive act, so the Films and Publication Board is beginning to, my apologies. Sorry about that.
No problem, dear.
So the Films and Publication Board is beginning to implement some of the provisions in the Act, which will be to start to regulate the online content distributors. But of course, the Act also provides for what we call the co-regulation, meaning that the online content distributors have got the ability to be able to classify their own contents in line with their approved classification guidelines by the Films and Publication Board.
Right.
If they are not able to do that, they can request the board to do that for them.
DM, if you may allow me, in terms of those prohibited material that you are requesting internet service providers not to publish and distribute, I just want to name some of them and what they include: child pornography, propaganda of war, incitement of imminent violence, and advocating hatred based on an unidentifiable group characteristic, and that constitutes, of course, the incitement to cause harm by any person. How much of a problem is it, or rather do we have in the country, of the list that I've just named right now? online by internet service providers, the distribution of this material. How much of it do we have in the country? How big of a problem is it? Have you been able to measure?
You have omitted another one, which is also very important, prohibition, which is generally referred to as revenge pornography, where an individual distribute material or photos of sexual private photos without the consent of the owner. So that is also one of the grounds of one of the actions that are prohibited. Maybe let me just say, when this act was initially mooted and it was introduced in Parliament in 2015, it was in response to the growing realization that there is more online consumption of information and news, more and more as a result of the rapid advance of the fourth industrial revolution and the adoption of the online work. More and more people are now on the internet, and so that's why it was realized that there is a need to regulate the content that gets to be distributed on the internet, and that's why this law was promulgated. It seeks to strike a balance. As you know, that we've got freedom of speech, but those freedoms are supposed to be exercised in a very responsible manner. So it does seek to strike this balance.
And I suppose my last question before I let you go, Deputy Minister, what then is your response to critics who say the FPA Act is nothing more than a censorship bill, saying that it opens leeway for those who don't like anything that's been said to immediately call it hate speech?
Not at all, not at all. In fact, it's to mislead the public. This law has got mechanism, as I said, there is core regulation mechanism, whereby the distributors of online content are able to classify their own material in line with the guidelines. And these guidelines are engaged, these guidelines are consulted upon, especially with the industry. So industry are able to express their views, and in fact, they've given views, they've given their input when these classification guidelines are adopted. So they are able to classify their own material using those guidelines. Of course, we do understand that this area has not been regulated in the past, and when these regulations are coming in, of course, we'll expect that most people will be uneasy about this, but there's really no need. I'm told by the interim CEO that they are preparing to engage the internet service providers, the organization that represents, so that they can continue to unpack this notice.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, but I appreciate you also coming on, Deputy Minister, to talk to us with the time that we have with you. Mapulane, Deputy Communications and Digital Technologies Deputy Minister, thank you so much for your time this